Welcome to Eggs and Issues, a monthly business program presented by the Portland Community Chamber, with presenting sponsors Bank of America, Martins Point Healthcare, and WEX, in cooperation with IDEX Laboratories, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, and Oxford Networks. Production support provided by Headlight Audiovisual. And now, please welcome the Portland Community Chamber's President, Michael Bork of Memic.
Good morning and welcome to Eggs and Issues, the monthly business forum or the Portland Community Chamber. We're glad to have you all here this morning. My name is Michael Bork. I'm a Senior Vice President at Memic, and I am the volunteer president of the Portland Community Chamber this year. As you all know, if you're here this morning, our special guest this morning is Governor Paul LePage. It is our honor to have him here as our speaker. Actually, when we set out earlier this year to invite the governor, we had hoped that we might be able to get him earlier in the legislative session, a time when he might lay out his agenda, but I think the timing is about perfect along about now. So we're happy to have him here with us. Before I go any further, I want to make mention that all of us have seen the news reports of the last week or so of the fires in Lewiston, and wanted to say that, first of all, our heart goes out from one community to another for the damage that's been done to lives there. And the Portland Community Chamber will make, in honor of the governor's visit, a contribution to the Lewiston Fire Relief Fund. Next, of course, I have to thank our sponsors. They are all members of the Portland Community Chamber and leaders of our business community. I'd ask that you wait to hold your applause until I've mentioned them all. Our presenting sponsors, Bank of America, Martins Point Healthcare, and WEX. Our cooperating sponsors, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, IDEX, and Oxford Networks. Our reception sponsors, Clark Insurance and Key Bank. Overall production support of Eggs and Issues is provided by Headlight Audiovisual, and our program is broadcast by our friends at Time Warner Cable Channel 9 every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Our media sponsor is The Forecaster, our e-media partner is MainBiz, and our radio sponsor is WGAN, which broadcasts live from Eggs and Issues each month. We also thank our special community partners of the Chamber, Anthem, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Northeast Delta Dental, and the Portland Press-Herald, Maine Sunday Telegram, and PressHerald.com. Now, please join me in thanking all of our sponsors. Our Tomorrow's Leaders program brings high school students to Eggs and Issues during the academic year. We want to thank our sponsors, AAA of Northern New England and Springborn Staffing, for their support of this program. Please join me in welcoming students, I believe, from Falmouth and Portland high schools. Would you wave wherever you are, students? They are. Thank you. Good to have you here. We also want to thank Springborn Staffing and AAA of Northern New England for their support of tomorrow's Entrepreneurs program. This program brings students from Southern Maine Community College's Entrepreneur program to Eggs and Issues. Welcome to our SMCC students. Would you wave if you're here someplace? Yeah, they are. Thank you. Baker Newman & Noyes is the sponsor of our Community Corner program, which brings area nonprofits to promote their organizations here at Eggs and Issues. Our Community Corner partner this month is Build-A-Biz. Build-A-Biz is a program of youth entrepreneurship adventures, an organization that educates and supports Maine young people in entrepreneurial leadership endeavors. Build-A-Biz provides experiential programs focused on entrepreneurial education designed to inspire career exploration for Maine's young people. Through their program, Build-A-Biz helps define career goals for these young people so they can help Maine companies flourish from a local talent pool. In addition, they collaborate with companies on how to develop a stronger workforce benefiting the entire community and boosting Maine's economy. For more information about Build-A-Biz, visit buildabiz.me. With us today from Build-A-Biz is the Executive Director, Kate Gooding. Kate, would you stand? Welcome to Eggs and Issues. Very nice to have you here with us. I want to take time to recognize some of the new chamber members who are with us here this morning. Amica Mutual Insurance Company, Havens Candies, Maine Community Health Options, and Northern Benefits of Maine. If you were here, please stand and say hello. Andy, I see you. Thank you for being here. Okay, one more announcement that I think is worth sharing with you before I move on to introducing the governor. Some of you may have never heard of the Greater Portland Economic Development Corporation, but I want to tell you it's an important partner of the Chamber. It's recently developed, and it exists, in fact, in part because the Chamber called for its creation through our white paper back in 2007. It's a public-private partnership, and it is housed in the offices of the Portland Regional Chamber on Congress Street. It works to attract businesses to the region. It's led by a man named Tom Turner, and I'm mentioning it here to you today, and if you look at the screen, you'll see this is the new website for www.gpedc.org, and it has lots of important information that all of us ought to know about the region, about business attraction. I urge you, when you get back to your office, make a note now and take a look at the site because there's important and valuable information. It's a good organization, so thank you. Following the governor's remarks later, our Chamber CEO, Chris Hall, will moderate our question and answer session here. Some of you submitted questions by email, and Chris will come and work through those, and we'll hope to extend the conversation with the governor in that way. So now on to our speaker. I won't spend a great deal on the governor's bio and resume. I think you all know his story is very well known, from his difficult youth and impressive rise through his own initiative and the help of mentors, to his successful business and now political career. That story was very well told back in 2010 during the election. Today, though, there is more to tell. In his first 2 years with the Republican legislative majority, he led major reforms in state pensions, health care, and even passed an income tax cut. With the sharp swing in the legislature back to Democratic control this past November, there were predictions that the governor might lose relevance. Well, agree with him or not, at this point it's hard to argue that he is not extremely relevant. And if you don't believe me, listen to this from Greg Kesich of the Portland Press-Herald, writing last month on the hospital debt issue. Quote, "The governor, not always thought of as a deft politician, managed his top priority issue like a master. After an election that took away his legislative majorities, making him, at least on paper, a weaker figure, he came out stronger than ever. Instead, it's a major policy win that will have long-range results." The column was headlined, "LePage still drives the agenda in Augusta." So, Governor, the truth from a newspaper. How about that? So, far from shrinking, Governor LePage now approaches what figures to be some of the most challenging weeks of his term. And while he may know exactly where all this is going, most of us don't. So today we welcome Governor LePage. We look forward to having him share directly with us his priorities for Maine, and we thank him for being with us. It is the Chamber's privilege to welcome the 74th Governor of Maine, Paul R. LePage.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll just make a few comments, and then I think we'd like to open it up and try to answer some of your questions. First of all, I would like to say that on the way up here this morning, I was just reading the numbers for April, and April's probably the best month we've had since I've been governor. So I'm very, very encouraged, because the numbers that are looking really good are the income tax numbers for personal income. So that means people are working because they're paying their taxes. Either that or the sheriff's out there somewhere. The state is in a very precarious position. We're 50th in the nation in place to do business. Governing today has us 40 out of 41 states that they've looked at for a place to do business. Our energy costs are 10th highest in the country. And recently I was speaking to the chairman of Airbus, and they're going to Alabama. And I was trying to encourage them to come to Maine. We were going to give them Brunswick Landing for $1, and I don't like to give deals too cheap. And he asked me two questions. One, what's your energy cost? So I thought real quick. I didn't want to say 10th in the country. I said, the lowest in New England. And then he said, are you a right-to-work state? And I said, we're working on it. And he said he'd come and visit this July, and I could buy him a lobster. And the point I make there is that has been consistent when I speak to people to invest in Maine. And I keep trying to tell the legislature one very simple thing. Capital goes where it's welcomed and stays where it's appreciated. And that's why we see Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina just booming. Just booming. Because they are looking for investment. And they're treating it with enormous respect. I was in Montreal recently and met with the premier and spoke to the Chamber of Commerce. It's so amazing that there's just on the western part of Canada, a lot of Asian companies are coming in, and in the eastern part of Canada, a lot of companies from United Kingdom and France are coming in. It's because, essentially, they've made a drastic cut in their corporate tax. So we still have a long ways to go. We are working at a state level, but until the federal government recognizes that investment goes where it's welcomed and stays where it's appreciated, we're going to still struggle with a lot of American companies going offshore. Our biggest problem, energy. And I won't speak long about it because you've all heard my comments about energy. We are the 10th highest in the country. We have decided as a state that we're going to pick winners and losers, and we picked wind as a winner, and everything else is a loser. I think that was a fatal mistake to Maine. And I say that only because wind energy is intermittent, it's not a base load, and I'll give you an example. It's highly subsidized, and so we have a lot of windmills in the state of Maine. But this is what they did in Quebec, is they went to hydro. So if you take a 14 square foot home with 4 people in it, and you live in Montreal, your electricity bill will be $34.15 a month. In Maine, it's $80.79 a month. That's the difference between picking winners and losers. So, energy, I'm going to continue to work on. We have some good things happening, CNG and the pipelines going in. The problem is that we need to get a massive pipeline built so we can take advantage of the Marcellus shale. Currently, we have a problem in capacity. So while we're working on getting a pipeline laid in Maine, I am working with Governor Corbett to try to get some investment so we can get more gas into Maine, and he's very active in that. So we are working on the bigger picture. Education, we just came out with our A to F grades. 13 states and the city of New York participate in this program. It's worked remarkably in states like Florida and Indiana, who are sort of the leaders in this process. And so I've been getting a lot of complaints from D and F schools. I have not received any complaints from the A and B schools yet. So I think the system may work in time. But this is what Jeb Bush told me. He says, don't get discouraged. The first year, they're going to want to burn you in effigy. The second year, they'll want you to run for president. And the whole purpose of the A to F is very simply this. 32% of kids in fourth grade are reading to proficiency. 39% of eighth graders read to proficiency. 39% is the highest we go. Then we go back down. A year ago, June, one high school the graduating class was reading at proficiency to 23%. And they had an 89% graduation rate. So it's a problem. All I'm trying to do is bring it to light. And interestingly, so that you all know, the grades that we used, the grading system, is all information that's sent from the schools to the state. But in past years, we put it in file cabinets. This year, we're just letting people know what it looks like. So it's not solely based on the more affluent communities, although the more affluent communities have done very well. Cape Elizabeth, Falmouth, they've all done well. But little rural schools like Mapleton, Maine, Baileyville, Maine, these little communities, rural, have done extremely well. So I'm encouraged that people will start looking at the results and saying, look, we can use it as a crutch and complain, or we can look at how they graded us and improve. And in Florida, the first year they brought it out in 1999, there were more D's and F's than there were A's and B's. Today, there are more A's and B's than there are C, D, and F's. So it really works. In Indiana, you go down the highway and you see billboards saying, schools are advertising for new students. Because this is what happens. When the public school systems gets better, parents are pretty smart. They figure out, instead of paying tuition and getting the same education I could in the public school, let's send the kids to the public school. So in Florida, private schools are suffering, public schools are busting at the seams. That's what's going to happen. So I think we're on the right track. My favorite subject, I see Bill Karen here, is paying the hospitals. That's my number one issue, and I will stay on it until we pay the hospitals. We owe the hospitals $484 million. My predecessor, who can say all he wants now, because he may run against me next year, but he did nothing to pay the hospitals. In fact, right now, I'm fighting the expansion, because the expansion today is only going to provide us relief for 3 years. And in 5 and 6 years, we'll be right back again doing the same thing, trying to pay the hospitals. Whether you know it or not, Medicaid and Medicare in the next decade will be a 50-50 split between the federal government and the states. We are now at 61.5%. We're heading downwards. And there's no possible way that it can be any other way. It's called economics. With $17 trillion in debt going to 21 by the end of this administration, there is a limit in which people are going to loan us money. At some point, we're going to have to address our bills. And for the next decade, we got the baby boomers. The next 20 years, the baby boomers are we got to filter them out. And it's going to end up, if Obamacare takes hold, we are going to be faced with the same system they have in Canada. And the Premier told me just 2 weeks ago in Quebec that now it's a 50-50 split up there. And they do have rationing, although they're trying to improve that. And in order to have good coverage up there, you need to buy supplemental insurance and come get your oncology and your heart work done in the U.S. So my question is, where are we going to go? Got to think about that. The $484 million that's owed needs to be paid. The minute that's paid, we can put $700 million into the economy. And I will tell you, those of you who work around Augusta, if that bill was put to the floor for a vote today, it would pass significantly by a massive, massive vote. There are 2 people in the state of Maine that are preventing a vote from being taken. And I urge you all to call the State House and tell them to pay the hospitals. And that's Senator Alfon and Speaker Eves. They are holding it up. And why? They told me, we're not going to pay until you expand Medicaid. Well, let me tell you this. The expansion of Medicaid they're talking about is 10,500 people, and they're called childless adults. And come January 1st, they will be covered through subsidies of the federal government. The ACA covers them come January. We have over 4,000 people in the state of Maine with disabilities that are not covered because we don't fund it properly. The state of Maine's share of Medicaid is about $1 billion. We're funding it at the tune of $700 million. It's not really difficult economics. We have 4,000 people waiting on a wait list until somebody dies so we can bring somebody else in. That's how it's working. We're not doing the citizens of Maine any favors. So I think that what we ought to do is pay the hospitals, work at finding ways to get the waiting list of 4,000 people down to 0, allow the people, the childless adults and parents, to get subsidized health care, which is going to hit in January, assuming the exchanges are put up. As soon as the exchanges are put up, then we'll be able to buy that insurance. Finally, I'd like to close with the budget. I put a budget that was balanced. Do people like it? No. Do I like it? Not especially, because there's no surpluses, and so I can't spend the way I'd like to spend. But it's balanced. It brings a big debate that needs to be brought out. It brings out 2 debates. One, on education. The state of Maine spends $15,000 per student per year. National average is $11,000. State of Florida has 2.7 million kids in K through 12. They are ranked 3rd in the nation on quality of education, just behind Massachusetts and Utah. They spend $11,000 per student, and they do it with 56 superintendents. The state of Maine, on the other hand, has 185,000 students. Not 1 million students, not 2 million students, 185,000 students K through 12, with 127 superintendents. We spend over twice as much to administer a school district than the average in the United States of America. It's pretty bad. That's called home rule. It's home rule. We all love it, and I love it too. As mayor, I'd have fought to the last ounce of blood for home rule. As governor, it's costly. Give you another example of home rule. City of Lewiston has about 36,000 people. They had some massive fires, and they have 36,000 people. They have 1 city manager, 1 police chief, 1 fire chief, public works, tax assessor, 1 of everything. Now let's go to Waterville, where I was mayor. Waterville, Winslow, Oakland, Fairfield have roughly 36,000 people. We got 4 town managers, 4 superintendents, 4 police chiefs, 4 fire chiefs, 4 tax assessors, God forbid. And we look at their tax rates, and they're all into the mid to high 20 mill rates. And we sit there and we say, we love home rule. So how do we pay for it? We have what is called revenue sharing. Revenue sharing equals subsidized home rule. And the debate that I'm trying to bring forward is not that the state wants to take over, but I do believe that we can do things with public safety and with roads at a much higher regional level, like the county level, than we should at the local level. And that's the debate that no one in Augusta wants to have. And I think that once we have that debate, we can see that we can do things more efficiently, quicker, faster, and better. Now, yesterday, the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, voted down a study for an east-west highway. In 1960s, I remember people saying, we don't need a turnpike and we don't need a 95. It's only going to serve to divide the state. Now I go to Dover-Foxcroft 50 years later and they're saying, we don't need an east-west highway, it's going to divide the state.